presentation. Before starting with the first panel, I would like to give the floor to Madame Raissa Malou, who is the main organizer or the main lead of this event, which is part of the la 9e semaine de la science et de la technologie, the 9th week of science and technology, so that she can present a little bit what is the perspective of the week, and we will move forward with the panel. Thank you so much. Madame Raissa, s'il vous plaît.
Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Manuel, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, je vous reçois. Je vous reçois.
Ok, parfait. Alors, est-ce que la traduction est bien disponible?
Oui. Allô, oui, je vous reçois.
Ok. Bonjour tout le monde. Vous êtes donc bien là pour la série de webinaires qui est organisée en collaboration avec l'association TOD'AERS dans le cadre de la 9e édition de la Semaine de la science et des technologies, qui est donc un événement organisé en République démocratique du Congo depuis 2014. Le thème de l'édition sont les technologies spatiales au service du développement durable en Afrique. Et nous sommes donc contents d'organiser ce webinaire avec TOD'AERS. Et donc, on va avoir des webinaires le 21 et le 22 avril. Donc, Manuel, je vous laisse donc continuer avec votre première session, la session 1 sur les services géospatiales. Bon webinaire à tout le monde.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Madame Raissa. Thank you so much, Mrs. Raissa, for your speech. So, the whole event has for theme the space technologies for sustainable development in Africa, and we are glad to start with the first panel on geospatial service delivery and socio-economic growth in Africa. So our panelists, our speakers present here will showcase, first of all, will present themselves and tell us about their companies and what are the different solutions that for the past years their companies are bringing to the market in Africa as geospatial services, and also how those geospatial services that they are bringing to the market are contributing to socio-economic growth in Africa. So today we have with us Dr. Sami Abouragab from the Desert Research Center of Egypt, which is a research center affiliated to the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation of Egypt. So I will give the floor to Dr. Sami Abouragab for his presentation. Dr. Sami Abouragab, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to join you in this panel. My name is Sami Abouragab from Desert Research Center, Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation in Egypt. In Egypt, we have many activities related to the use of geospatial in socio-economic development, but I prefer to choose a case study at the African level, as we are able to address the topic of African geospatial and socio-economic. So I choose a topic entitled to the geospatial and Earth observation for sustainable development goals in Africa through my participant in James and Africa project. I will start with my presentation here. Yes. Geospatial and Earth observation for sustainable development goals in Africa for economic development. Economic development need effective decision-making tools that help them conduct analysis, display, and dissemination result and make information decisions about where to locate new business or grow existing one. Geospatial and Earth observation techniques is proved to be powerful and effective, delivering their functionality to help economic developer, sustainable economic recovery and growth. Geospatial and Earth observation tool can prove the necessary platform for visualizations and modeling, analysis, and collaborations. I will present a case study for the use of geospatial and Earth observation in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals number 1531, which has been implemented through the Joint and North Africa Consortium in projects. It is best practice and illustrate how the geospatial and Earth observation are being utilized as a platform to help sustainable development goals. In sustainable development goal, we have 70 goals. The first one, no poverty, zero hungry, good healthy, until 70 goals. I'm working on goals 15, indicator 15.3.1 through Miss Land Development Platform. What is the Miss Land North Africa Platform? Is an operationally web service and open source software
Parler des différents services.
Excuse me. Continues.
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Stan, please continue.
Drilling. Yes. Miss Land North Africa is an operational web service and open source software, trailing of international standard for reporting SDG 1531. It's mean proportional of land that is degraded over the total land area. And technique approach allows the delivery of regular, up-to-date information on vegetation cover gain or loss to decision-making or socio-economic and environment agency at the first place. According to this platform, you can use through the computer, tablet, and mobile. With the cooperate with the private sector, we create this platform. The object of Miss Land then is to serve and deliver timely information at regular frequency on land degradation using geospatial and Earth observation. This will allow the assessment of hot spot characteristics, the degradation and trend activity. The interface of Miss Land is linked to documented and video guide approved. Brief description of the select land degradation indicator can also be found on the homepage. Use feedback, helping, and other tool we can use to detect information about what we are going to do with this platform. The first interface, we must registration and login, and after that we can select the language to use it. We can output data from download data in many other form. We can download data Excel file, image, chart. I'm going to describe the SDG indicators 1531. It's mean proportion of land that is degraded over the total land area. This indicator is continued from sub-3 indicator, land productivity, land cover, and carbon stock. The methodology is based on the baseline assessment and evaluate of change in the 3 sub-indicator and follow up one out all out. Statistic principally to category land as degraded or not degraded. This indicators mean land degradation neutrality. Land degradation neutrality will do one by one. Land productivity. Land productivity is biological productive capacity of land. Productivity analysis shows the net effect of change in ecosystem functionality and vegetation and biomass growth. This can be measured at local and global scale using geospatial and its observation correlated with annual net primary production of vegetation. This land service use supplied derived vegetation indicator like NDVI, MSAPI2, and CV to assess three measures of change for land productivity assessment through states, trajectory, and performance. States which compare the current productivity level in give area to historical observation of productivity in the same area. Trajectory, trend of productivity over the time. Performance is mean which measure local productivity relative to the other similar vegetation type in similar land cover type and bioclimatic region, similar ecology unit. We will talk about the other indicator, sub-indicator, it's land cover indicator. Land cover and land cover change address the states and transition in the structure and compensation of the landscape due to natural events and human activity. There are a wide range of national, regional, and global land cover dataset that specify the distributions and combination of land cover classes. The land cover maps are reclassified into 7 land cover class need for reporting to UNCCD: forest, grassland, cropland, wetland, artificial area, bare soil, and water. The methodology to assess the land cover indicator generally involved generation a land cover transitions map and the land cover class transition matrix that identifies land cover change between the baseline period and the comparison period. The first step is to specify if the change type is degraded or not degraded for each of the grade cell in the source land cover data. The last sub-indicator to calculate the...
Le dernier sous-indicateur à calculer.
Carbon stock.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Dr. Sami. Excuse me, the organizers also just let us know that now it's possible to share your screen if you want to share your presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, you can share it as well. Please continue. Thank you so much.
Okay, I will share my screen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, share the screen. Okay. It's okay for you?
Yes. Yes, we can see it. Thank you so much.
Carbon stock, soil organic carbon, is the amount of carbon stored in soil and is the main component of soil organic matter. The change in SOC are particularly difficult to assess for several reasons. It's high spatial variability of soil preparation, time and cost intensity of conducting representative soil survey, and lack of time and serious data. So, assessment of soil organic carbon stock to address some of the limitation and combination land cover stock method is used in estimate change in carbon organic stock. Determine in SOC reference value, use soil grade 25 meter carbon stock for the first 30 centimeter of the soil profile as a reference value for calculations. The classification the land cover mapped to the 7 land cover class: forest, grassland, cropland, wetland, artificial land area, bare land, and water. To estimate the change in carbon stock for the reporting period, carbon conversion coefficient for change in land use are used, as in shown in this figure. Land change and land cover conversion coefficient to calculate the degradation. Combine the 3 sub-indicators as calculate the degradation of land. We use land cover and land productivity and carbon stock. We classified both of them in the 3 sub-class. PSN, B is positive and S is stable and in negative for land cover and productivity and carbon stock, and combine them to get the degradation of the soil. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Agab, for your great presentation. Thank you so much. The next, we will now give the floor to the next speaker, Mrs. Pauline Okeyo. So she's representing S3 and Africa Geoportal. So Africa Geoportal is a geoportal co-founded by S3 that provides free geospatial data to African countries. Today she will first of all share what are the different case studies that S3 has been working on in Africa, and how those case studies are contributing to socio-economic progress in Africa. Thank you so much, Mrs. Pauline.
Hello, everyone. Could you please confirm if you can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Manuel, and everyone else for this opportunity to share with you what we are doing with Africa Geoportal as an initiative from S3. So I'll share my screen just to show you what Africa Geoportal is about. As Manuel mentioned, I am part of S3 as a solution engineer in Africa. So I'm part of a global organization whose main purpose is developing technology and solutions that revolve around geographic data. And we provide this technology for use to different industries, such as agriculture, similar to what Dr. Agab was showing in relation to achieving some of the SDGs he has mentioned. Other areas are utility companies, other areas are in natural resource management, and so on. So one of the initiatives we have under S3 as a company is Africa Geoportal that serves 3 main purposes. First of all, we're a portal of portals whereby we have worked with a number of countries and agencies that are interested in development across Africa to have this one central portal for dissemination of geographic content. Beyond that, we provide tools that could be used to interact with geographic content. So that is tools that allow you to visualize this data as well as do analysis and create applications out of that to support enriching of this content from various sources. We have provided these tools also to support that. And finally, we provide learning resources to help people build their capacity in working with spatial tools or GIS tools, that's part of geographic information science, as well as the ability to do different kinds of analysis when they're actually working with this data. So I will just once again shift my screen to display what we have under African GeoPortal. So to access the GeoPortal, it's a site which can access at using the URL indicated here, africageoportal.com. And once you get to the site, you have access to a lot of content that we've provided as Esri and together with our partners. So as you scroll down, you'll be able to see some of the agencies and countries that you're working with to provide this data. So to access this data, we have worked again with a number of partners to curate relevant content for Africa, whereby just in terms of ensuring that people have access to data, we are using our technology to enable that you have access to data that can support some of the various things you're actually doing. So as you're trying to assess what are the socio-economic factors in different countries and try to enable these countries, as well as people within the countries, be it researchers, be it government institutions, education institutions, and so on, to be able to make informed decisions. We are providing you access to data through the GeoPortal. And some of the things that you could do with the data, you're able to just filter and access this information based on categories listed over there. Beyond that, as I mentioned, we are working with a number of institutions, one of them being OpenStreetMap, which is a huge, diverse community of mappers we have globally. And we've seen in the case of Africa, we have OpenStreetMap communities that have actually been intensively mapping features across the continent. This information tends to be quite useful for a lot of users in Africa. And in this case, I've just loaded some of that data, which you can access through the GeoPortal. And from that point, we have it in a map viewer, which can allow users to interact with this information. So you can see from OpenStreetMap, within the map viewer, we're able to see this information on medical facilities, amenities across Africa, highways, waterways, and so on, which a user is able to interact with it. So I'll just do a bit of that, whereby as a user, you'll be able to just explore the attribute information there based on what has been captured through OpenStreetMap. You're able to filter this information based on different factors, such as, for example, for the shops, for example, if I'm interested in knowing the type of shops available from this particular layer, I'll be able to filter this information based on that. And beyond that, as a user, where I'm able to interact with this dynamically, I can also save this and share it out as an application for you. So I could share it publicly with users, and this could be shared as a map that other people can also interact with and make use of it. So beyond that, as a user, you're also able to add your own data, again, as you're trying to look at what are the socio-economic factors affecting residents in different places. And you're using your own data as well as other data that has been made publicly available, such as OpenStreetMap data, to derive these insights and share information outside. So as I mentioned, we have this data from useful resource, and if you just go to the details there, you'll be able still to access it within the GeoPortal, as Africa GeoPortal. And from that point, you can load it in a map, you can load it in a 3D scene if you want to look at how elevation affects the occurrence of these features and so on. So as I mentioned, we have countries and agencies that we worked with to have specific data for countries available through the country portals within Africa GeoPortal, as we're acting as a portal for portals, as well as agencies. So I'll just look at one country, that's Republic of Congo, and Grade 3 as an agency that we worked with to provide data. So for the Republic of the Congo, we worked with the National Institute for Geography to come up with this portal that's specific to the country, whereby you see that they've actually added their own country-specific data, as well as they're adding other data such as OpenStreetMap, which users can be able to interact with and access and make use of when they're working with data that is specific to Republic of Congo. So what a user will be able to do is that once they click on an interactive application, it can basically load on the screen there, and they can start making use of it from that particular point and so on. So you can see it just loads some information and some indicators that a user can make use of for this particular country and so on. So we are just enabling these national agencies to disseminate key information that could be used by various people just to make informed decisions as well as to derive insights when it comes to looking at social economic factors in the countries. Let me just close these ones. So other than Republic to Congo, as another agency we are working with, there's Grid 3. And this is a project whereby they worked with a number of institutions to come up with meaningful insights that also touch on socioeconomic factors. So for Grid 3, they have curated their data based on different things. And for example, you could look at risk analysis or social distancing and other data that they've actually been able to put together. So I just want to look at the case of risk analysis. If I click on that, it just goes to a point where a user can explore this data further, and they can just assess and see what kind of data is there based on the description, based on how recent the data set was updated, and so on. So an example of a data set from Grid 3 that you could look at is this one on COVID-19 risk forward. And what a user is able to do from full interaction within African GeoPortal, they can just again assess the value of this data. They can come to filter the data set if they're interested in a particular variable on this data set. So for example, if I'm looking at status and I'm interested in only the authorized status of this information, I'm able to look at that. If maybe I'm also interested in another variable, I can filter this information based on that. Since we're looking at the COVID-19 risk forward, I can also style what is on display here. So for example, looking at that particular index or index, if I apply this kind of styling, then on the fly, I'm able to see that places where the risk was quite high has a dark color, and places where it was marginally, the risk was marginal or it was quite low has a lighter color, and so on. So a user from this point is able to assess this information and determine if they'd like to make use of it, and so on. Beyond that, a user is able to download this data for use in different platforms. So they can download it to use it as a CSV, shapefile, GeoJSON. These are just the standard spatial, what do I say? These are just the standard formats of geospatial data which you'll be able to access this information on, and so on. So we are providing this platform just to ensure that users, that is organizations, individuals, and so on, are able to access data that's critical to looking at social economic factors across the continent or in different countries and so on. So other than that, we have provided this platform to individuals to share a narrative of the work that they're doing across the continent. So these individuals just go beyond what we have as national agencies, whereby we have smaller groups, informal groups that are taking advantage of the platform to share information. So one of the ones that we've worked with mostly is a small group in Uganda known as Resilience Mappers, and we're able to use African GeoPortal as a group to be able to map informal settlements within the capital city of Uganda, that's Kampala, and they were mainly focusing on aspects of health and education. So if we just come to look at field activity, you'll see that for this particular group, they were able to map out of the different settlements, they were able to map some key information such as waste disposal, locations. They're able to map building footprints. We're able to map building footprints, as you can see there, and the condition itself. We're able to map health centers, and this is just an interactive map whereby someone who's looking at this information, they can be able to query the particular features and so on. So for this particular health center, you can see the name, description about it, the kind of facilities it has, and so on. And they were also able to capture education facilities. And again, if a user is interacting with this particular map again, they will be able to see for a particular facility, you can see it's a nursery school, and they've also captured some key information about it. So beyond that, they're also able to use some of the key tools we have to showcase this information. So still using the tools we have within Africa Geoportal that's available to any user who creates an account on Africa Geoportal. It's free to create the account. You can create things like a dashboard which allow for interactive assessment of some of this information. So for example, if we're looking at this general area within Kampala, within the division, it's possible to just look at the number of facilities that are actually available within the entire division. And if a user, for example, selects one particular informal settlement, it just zooms to that particular area. And again, you can see that it has filtered this information. So it makes it easier for anyone who wants to decide what kind of development will be needed within this particular location. Then they will actually be able to determine from something like the dashboard, because you can see for this settlement, probably it has a huge population, but you can see there are no pharmacies or there's no access to health services and so on. So if you're looking at all the settlements there and so on, probably for someone who's making that decision, they can decide what kind of health facilities need to be made available to that particular settlement, or what kind of education institutions need to be added to that particular area and so on. Another example of a small group, a non-profit group that has made use of Africa Geoportal is this specific one from Senegal. And they've been using it to do some assessments, touching on various areas that they are looking into. One of them is they've developed a data collection form for mapping, I believe this is civil organizations that actually look into trafficking. I think this is drug trafficking. So using this tool for data collection, a user will be able to enter information such as identifying the organization, where the organization is actually located, and put in additional information, whereby this civil society group will be able to work with this other group in terms of supporting them or trying to provide visibility to their work. Finally, we have, again, as Africa Geoportal, we provide this platform to different people to be able to make use of it to tell their own stories. So one of them is a very strong user of Africa Geoportal. This is Taiwo, who was actually recognized, similar to Manuel, who was actually recognized as a geospatial rising star, a global rising star. And what he's been able to do with Africa Geoportal has been quite significant through the initiative he has for geohazards and mapping risks when it comes to disaster response. And one of the stories he has created, or one of the narratives he has created, is using a tool we have on Africa Geoportal known as story maps. And from this point, he's been able to break down this narrative, looking at, in the case of a disaster, how can the citizens of a particular place prepare themselves before a disaster, act during a disaster, and how can they respond, or how can they, again, adjust themselves after a disaster, and so on. So this is just looking at some of the ways that Africa Geoportal is available to all of you as users. I hope you'll be able to sign up and create an account and start creating your own stories, or start taking advantage of the tools we have available to look at the socio-economic factors within your countries. Thank you. And I'll just hand it over back to Manuel.
Okay, sure. Mrs. Pauline, thank you so much for your great presentation. So before, I think the audience might have some questions for you. But first of all, I wanted to ask you, the speakers, one question first. So among the goals of the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, we can see there is a focus on bringing quality education and capacity building across Africa. So through your presentations, we've seen that you've been doing that with Dr. Sami Ragab in Egypt, and with Pauline through S3 and Africa Geoportal. So we wanted to ask you, like, how do you manage like bringing capacity building to those different countries or to those different regions in your country? And if in the future there is a country, there is a company, there is an organization that would like to collaborate with you for capacity building, for organizing workshops, how are they going to proceed with that? So first of all, yeah, Dr. Sami Ragab, please. How do you manage capacity building? And also, if in the future there are governments or there are organizations, universities that would like to know more or collaborate with you, how do they have to proceed? Thank you.
Okay. During the first phase of GEMSAT Africa, we arranged many training about using this platform, Miss Land platform. If anybody from Africa is in the second phase, we will open for more area because it's limited in the GEMS Africa first phase in North Africa only. But if somebody else from other country can join to us, we can join through OSS or from me. You have my email, and somebody need to join will come to join to us. And we announce for all the training through the media, the GEMSAT Africa page, and many other social media, Twitter, and something else.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes. Yes, Pauline.
Thank you. Thank you, Manuel. So I'll speak from both the angle of ESRI as the company as well as Africa Geoportal. So what we have through the Geoportal, one of our main initiatives, something that you're developing, is a mentorship program where we'll be working with different user communities across the continent to help them build capacity through the diverse network of experts we have and so on. And this is closely mirroring what you've mentioned with the agenda that is there available with the African Union, because we strongly align our initiatives and activities within Africa to what AU envisions for growth and development in Africa. So through that, we are working towards developing a strong mentorship network across the continent. We've done a bit of that in Nigeria through what I've shown with Taiwo and what is focusing on disaster response. And we're definitely looking for people to work with and collaborate with to join our network as mentors, as well as identifying mentees who we could work with over a period of time to help them build capacity. So beyond that, we also have a lot of training resources, which I'll share on the chat side, that are open for learning. There's no requirement for someone to actually cover many of these courses. And we have a very rich database of lessons that users can go through to develop their capacity when working with spatial data, as well as addressing some of the critical issues we have across Africa. So these are basically classified based on capabilities. So for example, if you're a data scientist and you'd like to see how you can work with data and drill down the data to unearth some of these insights, then we have lessons tied to that. If you're a university lecturer or a teacher, for example, in a high school or a primary school or elementary level teaching, we also have lessons that are tied to that. And our lessons are available in English and in French. We are still working on having other languages such as Portuguese being available there for training and so on. And again, I'll provide links to that on the chat section. And finally, when it comes to working with institutions, we work with a lot of institutions and user communities to have workshops on a virtual platform as well as in-person availability for a lot of these events and so on. So we have previously participated in regional events such as Africa GIS. We have a number of events taking place in Africa this year that we will be taking part of and so on. And we look forward to interacting with all of you through these events. We've already started receiving events for Geography Week and GIS Day that will be taking place in November globally, and already a number of institutions across Africa have requested that we participate and we provide this support. So anyone who has any request for support for us to do a workshop jointly or for us to participate in your event, we will be glad to. Again, I'll share a link to, I'll share our contact information in the chat, and we look forward to working with you to help build capacity across the continent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Pauline. I think there is one question from the audience to Dr. Sami. So
yes,
the question...
I did the question already. The question is, can these tools to be cooperate with the HC's agriculture program? So what's the response time of your data process? Really, it says this platform is concerned to the land degradation, but through the GIBS and Africa, we have two platforms. One of them I display today is talk about the land degradation. Other one is talk about MISPAR. MISPAR is the other platform we created through the cooperation between the North Africa Consortium through GIBS and Africa and the company Visitora. Is a French company. It's work in this field from a long time ago, and it's have a good job in this in agriculture activity. So we have a special platform for that. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Sami.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think there is one question for Mrs. Pauline. So what is the subscription fee or cost of accessing the data?
Thank you, Manuel. I saw that was a question on the chat, which I've responded to, and the answer being that there is no cost to access the data, to make use of the tools, or to access the learning resources available through Africa Geoportal. It is all free because, as I mentioned, it's an initiative that ESRI has to empower us as Africans to be able to make use of these tools and to be able to support our local communities. So there's no cost at all to make use of any of the data, tools, and learning resources on Africa Geoportal. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, yeah, I have one more question for Mrs. Pauline. So, for the data and the result that you presented to us, so like those data can be used for any kind of applications, I suppose. So, can you give us some of the like you mentioned some of the main applications, and in Africa, for example, in some of the regions when it comes to demographic results to know the population of a specific country, usually some of the institutions, they really struggle with that as well. So like using your platform, is it possible to use your platform for that kind of application as well? Because I believe you mentioned a lot of many applications that are really great. I just wanted to ask about that as well, because it's one of the questions that was coming back to us usually.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. So our main or our strong partners when it comes to providing access to data for countries specifically. As you saw, we have country-specific sites. It's actually the statistics agencies which are responsible for demographic information for the different countries. So they're the ones who have been the strong proponents of having this platform being available and then having a country-specific site that actually allows them to share data on demographic aspects, be it what's the population in terms of age and so on. What does the population look like in terms of access to education, income level, access to other services, and so on. So that's something that it has been strongly pushed by these agencies and so on. So what these agencies have been doing with our technology previously, I believe for many countries, in the last few years or in the coming few years, there'll be a national census being done. And we have seen many countries using our technology around this, be it on the pre-enumeration aspect that is preparing for the census, trying to establish what will be the different zones to be able to do the enumeration and so on. Also using it during the census aspect, whereby they're trying to monitor and manage the enumerators or the people who are conducting the census, then finally showing the census results. So this is something that you've seen a number of these agencies relying on our technology to be able to support that and so on. And again, now beyond having these insights, it goes a step further for those involved in disseminating resources across the country, just getting that understanding that for example, we have a lot of young people in a particular area, they may be unemployed and so on. So how do you make sure that they have access to the right kind of education to have them build their skills to be able to join the workforce and contribute to the workforce, be able to take care of themselves and their families, as well as contribute to the ongoing national growth and so on. So you'll see that also this information, when it comes to monitoring it and tying it to SDGs, that's where also our platform is being used. As I think I'll also try to share it here on the chat. The main platform that is being used by UN SDGs to actually monitor country level SDGs and be able to show this spatially on a map, it's actually our technology, similar to what we have on Africa Geoportal. It's actually SG technology that's being used to map all of this information and put it on a map and give that aspect of comparing it to different countries or different administrative areas and so on. So we have gotten into so many areas in terms of being able to capture this information, synthesize it for use on a national level, and then have it being monitored and being aligned to what we are hoping to achieve for every country and every person when it comes to the SDGs. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for your answer. This is Pauline. I think there is one more question for Dr. Sami. It says, I believe this tool may assist in predicting the progress of desertification. Can it be used to detect deforestation?
Yes, through this misled, it's we have a special tool. We can detect the that problem. If we return back to my presentation, where is okay? I will open it again and show you where is the interface of the software, the platform, and where we can find that. Where's the presentation? Okay.
Okay, sure.
I will show again. Sorry. Here. I have time. I can share it and show him how we can find it.
Yes, yes, sure.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Here we can find some of the indicators we can use through the Misland platform. It's SDG 1531 and the vegetation loss and gain indicator, forest cover change. This is a tool we just click on it and it will be through that. This is the interface, and we can select, just log in and select the tools of forest cover change and forest fire too, and you can calculate and get the result from image. We can get from the output in Excel file, chart, any of them we can get the output through that platform.
Okay.
That's answering your question.
Yes, I believe Mr. Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So once again, I would like to thank our panelists, Dr. Sami Ragab and Mrs. Pauline Okeo, for joining us for this first panel. And thank you, a great thank you to the audience as well for joining us. I will invite Mrs. Raisa Malu for a concluding remarks for this panel, and see you again in 30 minutes for the second panel. Mrs. Raisa Malu, thank you.
Et bonjour, rebonjour à tout le monde. Merci à nos panélistes pour ces conférences très intéressantes. Donc, nous clôturons ici notre première session et nous reprenons d'ici une demi-heure, 25 minutes, pour la deuxième session de la journée. Merci à tous. À très bientôt. Restez connectés.
Okay, bye-bye. I think we have 3 main speakers who will be attending. So one of them is Mr. Sunigitu Ekwe, the scientific director from the Ministry of Environment of Nigeria, and Mr. Milton Nyamajawo. He's a Program Development Manager at the Institute for Economics and Peace, which is an institution that works on economics and peace around the world, in Australia, in Africa, and at the other parts of the world. We also have Mr. Mario Huedakor, who will be representing the Ministry of Urbanism of Togo. He's not here yet, but I believe he will be joining. So thank you so much for joining, and welcome to our panelists and speakers. So first of all, I will give the floor to every panelist to present themselves and to tell us more about their institutions that they are representing, and to show us the case studies that are focusing on geospatial data governance and policy from their institutions. So I will give the floor to Mr. Sunigitu Ekwe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me all. It's really a great opportunity to be part of this forum. From my ministry per se, geospatial data is very critical for the sustainable management of the interactions within the environment. And as a result, I think we drive issues around data to enable from the ocean account to land account, forest account, biodiversity account, even the waste accounts to determine how population utilizes the natural resources within the environment. So I serve as the Director Scientific at the Cross River State Ministry of Environment, which is one of the 36 states in Nigeria. Nigeria is made up of 36 states and FCT. So we have the Federal Ministry of Environment, which is based in Abuja, and then the state ministries of environment. And we have almost the same rules. However, internationally, the Federal Ministry of Environment represents the country out there. Thank you. So do I go ahead, or after the rest we have discussed the introduction?
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Sunikichu, you can go ahead with your presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. As the topic has gone, geospatial data governance and policy. Nigeria has a National Geospatial Data Infrastructure Implementation Committee and has been largely characterized by unfulfilled expectation. So first, we have a national geoinformation policy adopted by the Minister of Science and Technology. We have a 27-member National Geospatial Data Infrastructure Committee with 6 subcommittees on geospatial data sets, 1, 2, standards, 3, clearinghouse and metadata, 4, capacity building and awareness, 5, legal, and the 6th subcommittee is on sustainability and funding. However, the policy was submitted to the Federal Executive Council for approval in 2004, but it was returned for review of the membership of the National Geospatial Data Infrastructure Committee and the funding mechanism. One of the key reasons was based that since the proposed budgetary provision was to be the 2.5% of the federal government total annual budget, I think they had some challenges there. So many years have passed since the draft was reviewed, but the modified version was still not being presented for approval by the federal government, let alone being processed for enactment by the National Assembly. It is obvious, not regarded as a priority. I think that is based on the political class and has a lot to benefit from this. So I do not know why it is obviously not regarded as a priority. We have all the prerequisites to install an effective national geospatial data infrastructure from which over 180 million habitants could benefit. We have many educated professionals. We have a national policy concept. We have money, lots of projects, more and more data, and name them. But what is missing is a conscious effort to implement a national geodata infrastructure in order to facilitate coordination of the geospatial resources and provide easy access to data such as Earth observation and images. The lead agency for the geospatial resources in Nigeria is the National Space Research and Development Agency, NASDRA, but is unable to really support the request for adequate yearly funding. However, they have been able to implement a pilot project in 2009 involving 3 other national geospatial data infrastructure node agencies, such as the Office of the Surveyor General of the Federation, the National Population Commission, and the Nigerian Geological Survey Agency. And this project has been very successful and has showed the readiness of national geospatial data infrastructure readiness. We already use the international standards to provide low-cost domestic solution for SDI development and use indigenous professions in the complete design and implementation of this spatial data infrastructure pilot. And there's a resulting web portal based on ISO 19115, which has a meta set data where the limited metadata from the 4 agencies can be found which is www.ngdi.gov.ng. In 2007, there was a follow-up activity titled Integration of Web Map Services with the current Nigeria National Geospatial Data Infrastructure portal, which achieved limited success. Unfortunately, there has not been any other activity relating to that. Well, we could say in Nigeria, this clearly highlights the challenge of the initiative sustainability. Nigeria having a 36 states as a federation with FCT, only a few, like Lagos, have been able to put geospatial data policy, a draft in place for domestication of the national policy. And maybe other 2 or 3 states who are planning to do so. But what is encouraging is that there are currently many geospatial programs and mapping projects in many government and private sector organizations. So I think even 18 universities in Nigeria are currently offering degree programs in surveying and geoinformatics, while 29 polytechnics and 4 specialized institutions are offering ordinary and higher national diploma and postgraduate courses. So I think there are a whole lot of opportunity, but Nigeria serving as Africa's biggest oil, should there be a less financial constraint for us to push this? It's quite tricky. So I think there is a political way that we need to push. And if this forum can come up with a clear framework to show the importance to the political class for the adoption and mainstreaming of geospatial data governance and policy, it will really go a long way to enable the National Assembly even process and enact a law about that. I'm happy for any questions that may arise from my short presentation. Thank you.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Sonigitu. Thank you so much for your great presentation. I will now invite the next panelist, Mr. Milton Nyama Jao, for his presentation. Mr. Milton, thank you so much.
Oh yes, sorry. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm very sorry for the quality of my video.
Yes, I can hear you from my side.
And I will go ahead and share my screen and give my very brief reflections. I think I'd like to thank the previous speaker who basically covered everything that we would have wanted to say. But nonetheless, I will go ahead and share who we are. Now, the Institute for Economics and Peace is a global think tank. And what we do is that we provide the leading data in terms of peace and peacefulness around the world, trying to bring about a greater understanding of peace and its economic benefits. Our main research reports are the Global Peace Index, which provides a ranking of the world's countries in terms of their relative levels of peace, from number 1 to number 163. We also produce other reports such as the Global Terror Index and the Ecological Threat Register, which deals with issues to do with climate change. Our headquarters are in Sydney, Australia, and we have regional offices in Brussels, Belgium, in The Hague, in New York City, in Mexico City, and then in Harare, Zimbabwe, where the regional office for Africa is, and that's the office that I represent. Now, our research is used all over the world by a variety of partners, and our interest in this topic today is driven by the fact that we have some applications of geospatial data. We map terrorist attacks using them for the Global Peace Index and Global Terrorism Index. We also take a look at natural resources, principally water, in terms of the Ecological Threat Register. We're also interested in time series geodata for movements, the spread of disease and phenomena such as violent events. And then it's also been a point for strategic research collaboration with organizations such as UNEM. Now, as my colleague highlighted briefly, some of the challenges include issues to do with cost in terms of the technology, its availability, access to it, and its ownership, the limited use of geospatial data, and the limited exploration of different applications. And then, of course, there's the element of underinvestment. There's an element of underinvestment in terms of the technology. In terms of the proposals for this forum, I would propose number one, a shift in the attitudes, institutions, and structures for geospatial data. Now, sorry, just excuse me for a moment. So sorry about that. So strengthen the attitudes, institutions, and structures around the use of geospatial data. By attitude, I simply mean the culture of the use of this data. This has been missing. By institutions, I think my compatriot from Nigeria was pointing out the different government departments that exist in this country. These aren't universally available. They need to be spread to the country and adopted in that way, and empowered by capable professionals and invested in through financial support and other means. And then the structures, of course, the relationships that exist between these structures, and then the policies to make sure that they're powerful and enforceable. Now, there's a need to strengthen the partnerships and collaboration. And I mentioned internationally because there's a very uneven spread in terms of the technology available. The countries that are ahead, the institutions that are ahead should reach out a hand and assist those that are further behind. This will be critical, I think, in applying this. There's also a need to lessen the misuse. And by misuse, an example I could use is perhaps the ethical considerations, where you could pick out the individual details of the identity of persons through the use of geospatial data. And this has opened up, I think, a can of worms for researchers around the world when you start looking at some of these potential misuses by nefarious agents. And then, of course, there's a need to build data quality, accuracy, and standardization and issues around that, because this has been a cause for hesitancy amongst governments, amongst some partners. And then once we do that, we can demonstrate the usefulness or enhanced application of this data, and then stimulate investment. And then what's even more important, I think, for all researchers everywhere, is that we apply the insights for current and future positive impact. There's no point in knowing that there's going to be a flood in 2 years if you're not going to then relocate your people to improve their resilience and reduce their exposure to that disaster. So basically, that is the brief reflection that I wanted to offer, and I'm happy to take questions and provide clarification. So thank you once again to the organizers of this forum and my fellow panelists.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Milton, for your great presentation. So before moving to, before receiving the questions from the audience, I believe our two speakers have mentioned some very important points and some very important challenges that we face in the African region when it comes to geospatial data governance and policy. So I wanted to ask, like when it comes to face those kind of challenges, for example, the fact that in some regions or in some countries, geospatial applications are not seen as priorities. So how do you overcome those kind of challenges? How do you pitch those proposals on using geospatial data to governments and like to higher authorities? How do you do it? Because I believe Mr. Suniti too in his presentation, he mentioned some of the states of Nigeria which have already implemented the geospatial data, while some of the states haven't yet. So how those states who are already doing it, how did they proceed, and what are your recommendations for the states or the other countries who are a bit behind of schedule? Mr. Sonikichu, please. Thank you.
Thank you for the excellent question. Yeah, you find out that the geospatial data infrastructure provide a lot of resource management, especially, and is able to turn in good revenue for natural capital. And like Lagos State that has adopted the national policy and come up with a draft policy and running with it, is a state that has over 20 million inhabitants. And they have seen the profitability of interfacing with the private sector to increase their revenue generation. Also follow with Ogun State. And of course, when you go to the agricultural sector, you see that utilizing the Earth satellite data is very critical. But where I think we have some trick, it's the political class, due to maybe some level of confidentiality and not wanting to implement this because it will promote social security just like we have in the developed countries. Now, we look also at our developmental partners and investors who are supposed to push for priority of the utilization of geospatial data to be able to determine how resources are being utilized and how security are being coordinated. So I think our developmental partners have a lot of pressure to put on government if really they want to us to achieve the SDG, because of course they have a lot of agenda to put on the table. Their companies, their investors are operating in Nigeria and some other African country. And if you look at Rwanda specifically, and you see the efficiency of how they are using their geospatial data, you marvel, and they're able to, someone could say is a small country, but it enhances coordination. And that's why I think the African Union need to be able to come up with a kind of framework that enable countries within Africa to see the need to implement the geodata governance and policy infrastructure or whatever that will stimulate that to meet up with the developed countries. Without the geodata, the geospatial data implementation, you see, we are still third country, and that's why most of our data are not really reliable for World Bank, and even the UN Statistic Division. So I think it's something that our developmental partners need to put pressure, especially from the World Bank, to see that data efficiency can help Africa. I hope I try on the question. If not, I could like to put more clarification. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much for your answer, Mr. Sonikichu. So, Mr. Milton, what do you think, like, can you give us your answer regarding the same question as an international, I think your institution works internationally. So can you give us an international perspective, like when you face that kind of challenge internationally, how do you face it? How do you manage it? And what are your recommendations for the countries who are also willing to get into the these geospatial implementations? Thank you. Mr. Milton.
Thank you very much for your question. And I think the answer goes in both directions. For the ones that are ahead, for the ones that are already believers, for the ones that are already making very good and solid applications developing the policies, investing in the infrastructure for geospatial data, and demonstrating its use and impact. It's our responsibility to reach out to like-minded people in the less exposed areas. So, for example, we can quickly identify allies, for example, at universities. This is a good place to start. These people are academics, these people are technocrats, these people understand some of these things perhaps a little bit better than policy makers might. So this is a good place to start. And then I think for those who are on the other side, we're saying, you know what, we don't have the resources that are necessary for this. We would like to explore it some more. It's then the responsibility to identify their barriers very, very clearly and articulate them in ways that then development partners can respond to. You need to be able to make a case, for example, for the African Union to step in and say, at that level, this is what we will do to ease the entry, to ease the access issues, to ease the issues relating to perhaps the availability of technology. I saw a question in the chat box relating to, I think it was the lack of continental cohesion and the ability to have, you know, the geospatial data technologies and the space technologies and all the rest. And I think the other thing we mustn't take our eyes off of is that Africa is a continent that is faced by many immediate challenges. So when you have a COVID-19 or Ebola or malaria outbreak, when you have schools coming up, when you have elections that need to be taken care of, when you have disasters and food insecurity issues, it's often very hard to then say, let's go and set a satellite in space. This year would seriously get you in trouble with your voters and might not be identified as the correct direction to take. I know that when in Zimbabwe, it was announced that we are launching a space program, there was a lot of laughter initially from the broad population, because the understanding at what this means, at what this could benefit, at what the dividend would be from if we invest this in this route was a little bit limited. So I think to those questions, that would be my response for now.
Thank you so much for your answer. One question from the audience. So I think Mr. Rodrigue Kazwala was asking, what are the reasons of the lack of collaboration between African countries when it comes to geospatial technologies? Like why different African countries are not coming together to collaborate to build their own satellites, for example, or to create their own geospatial database, for example. What are the causes or the reasons of that lack of collaboration? Mr. Sonikichu, please.
Oh, thank you. It's it's really tricky because you find out that first, innovation and technology are key elements that drive collaboration. If you don't have a lot of high-level innovations coming out from Africa, then how do you have the infrastructure and the technology to promote the collaboration? You see that the geospatial data infrastructure is more or less being controlled by the first world country. So what are the innovations from the African continent that will stimulate this kind of collaboration? Secondly, just like our universities, you have a lot of professors, but how are they interlinking? What are the peer review mechanisms to look at what is happening in South Africa, what is happening in Kenya, and what is happening within West African region like Nigeria? So if you even look critically in the assessment of, in terms of technological breakthrough, the technology is developed, but the rich country buys it up. And at that point, it's no longer your technology. So you will become more of a consumer or dependent continent. So that is one of the highest challenge interfacing. Second, our philanthropists, where are they investing their resources? Are they investing resources in research? so that you'll be able to come out with innovation. We have the human resources, and which is a huge capital for the African continent, especially young people that can really drive economic opportunities for us. But where are the funding going to? Thirdly, most graduates from the African universities, do they have alumni number, and do they have a contribution to the alumni to enable them say, hey, this is what we want to get ourselves involved into, so that it could stimulate some kind of developmental funds in universities, like we have in most other developed countries, that like in the University of Cambridge, the Graduate Institute, a lot of Africans even have alumni number and they do contribution there. Is that the same case in Africa? These are the shortfalls that are really dragging us behind. And we really need to have clear policy direction as an African Union or as a coalition of African states to determine where we want to be and how we want to get there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sunigichu. Mr. Milton, can we have your answer, your opinion on this question, please? Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Manuel. I think I had already touched a little bit in my earlier response. And I think the earlier thing I will add is that it's unfortunate that as an African continent, we're a continent that already has challenges. There are already divides that exist. I won't go into them between the nations, and sometimes prohibit collaboration. An example is this: is very quickly when we say we want to set up an initiative such as this. We've seen it, for example, with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We've seen it with other technological programs. And the question comes up to say, who will bear the cost? There isn't a country that wants to carry the rest of the continent. And this is why I mentioned this as part of my recommendations, to say we really need to get over some of these barriers and say, if you're a country that's ahead, if you're an organization or an institution that's ahead, bear the burden, so to speak, of carrying that investment until everyone else catches up and can reap the benefits as a continent. My colleague stated very well that some other economies, some other societies in other parts of the world have been doing this for a lot longer and are better at this collaborating and this investing, and we really need to see that we bring it to fruition. Of course, this is not a new thing that's been brought up. There are conversations that have been going on at the African Union level, at different national levels, in small workshops here and there, but they haven't really resulted in I think, the kind of progress that we would like to see. So I think that's why we are all here and having this conversation.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much for your answer. Yeah, I believe one of the in the audience, someone mentioned the GMES and Africa program going on within the African Union. And in our first panel, we also had a representative from Dr. Sami from Egypt, who also mentioned the case studies from GMES and Africa. So thank you so much, Mr. Raphael, for mentioning that. So for the next question, we have okay, the next question is regarding data security. So Mr. Rodriguez is asking, when it comes to like collaboration, sharing those kind of geospatial data, we can see that sometimes the geospatial data that African countries are using, sometimes it comes from Europe, sometimes it comes from US agencies. So what are the security policy around, what are the security policies around those data access that we are giving to those countries, or that those countries are giving to us? So what are the strategies and the implementations that are already there? Mr. Sunigichu, please.
Thank you for that excellent question. You see, in generating information, they are fundamental for data sets, data types, data sources, and nature of access, and order of data. Now, the one key challenge on data security, what amount do we put or invest as Africans on data collection before even cleaning? That has to go to the clearinghouse, you know, because you need to have a clearinghouse network. So most of the time, most of the data that we are getting out there is being funded from external source. And then these people will not give you what they have funded. They will clean up their data and decide to use it. And then, of course, that's why most data from Africa are not properly accepted in most international gathering. So I go back again to a place like Rwanda that I had used as an example earlier. It takes a couple of hours to even get your international passport and your national passports registered in Rwanda. But here, for example, in Nigeria, it takes you months. You see, and these are things you need to go online. So you don't even have the citizen data. So you are not able to understand even how households are utilizing resources within the environment. You are not able to even determine the amount of money an individual or businesses are generating within country or possessing. And that's why you could see high level of corruption and we cannot really track, but the tracking will always come from outside because of how these movements occur at the international frame. So we don't seem to have strong institutions that will even support data security. So it's either we accept what comes from outside or we manage with what we do. And that's why we are not getting it right. I think that's my best opinion on that question. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Semigichu. Mr. Milton, can we have your opinion on this? Thank you. Mr. Milton. Yeah, unfortunately, I think Mr. Milton got disconnected. So, yeah, I think we will move to the next question. So the next question from Mr. Rodriguez is again focusing on the collaboration side, like regarding the challenges that are the countries are facing between them. So I wanted to add to this question. So, Mr. Sonikitu, what do you think? For example, in our first panel today, we had Mrs. Pauline, who she was representing the private sector, like through S3 and Africa Geoportal, and through Africa Geoportal, they are providing data access to African countries for free. And like, based on your experience, like, what do you think the governments, what are your recommendations? Like, should the governments go for private sector collaborations, or should they focus on the public sector? So what do you think is the best way to approach these challenges for collaboration between African countries or between African governments? Thank you so much.
Thank you too. Really an excellent one. In fact, it's simple. It's a PPP. You know, you need to go to the private-public partnership. And this does not only have to do with the private sector, because you need to see the role of the academia, the researchers, so that we are able to position and provide the necessary framework for mapping and environmental monitoring. Yeah, the private sector are profit-oriented. And for them to effectively make their profit, they put strategies that will make them have high profit. Now, what would be the public perspective when they feel they are being exploited? So you need to look at a balance. And then again, in the public sector, based on the weak institutions that we currently have, it seems like we also have low manpower. So you need to increase the capacity of those in the public sector, because the private sector goes for the best. But in the public sector, it's like, well, we can manage. The private sector doesn't manage. So the public sector need to realign and understand their valuable professionals so that they can have this kind of synergy. Most time, this collaboration is even being killed by officers who try to use bureaucratic processes in their office because they don't have clarity to either put down very laudable collaborative strategy. So I think it's something that we need to bring all stakeholders to the table, from the technical, from the academia, from the private sector, from professionals. Of course, people have acquired a whole lot of knowledge, and even the diaspora community, they see how things are working out there. Okay, take for an example, in Nigeria, you have the insurgency, and this place you're having the insurgency is like a desert. So how will you not justify that a desert suddenly has a place, a forest that people are hiding and they cannot track? Yeah, there are satellite imagery, even Google Earth, you see? So there is some level of corruption that we really need to tell ourselves, hey, Africa, yeah, we can do it, but we need to get the right professionals, the right people, and a strong institution to enhance effective collaboration so that citizens will have full benefits of the geospatial data governance system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. I think Michelle from the audience is saying that unfortunately Mr. Milton is facing some network challenges. It was great having this great panel discussion, and yeah, I believe if the audience has other questions, they can ask if they have more questions for the speakers. Unfortunately, Mr. Mario from the Ministry of Urbanism of Togo also couldn't join due to last-minute changes, but yeah, if the audience has more questions.
So if I may put some thoughts, it's from this forum, we should come up with key highlights, increase level of advocacy to high level authorities, and see the importance if we really want our continent to meet up with the SDG, which is just about 8 years to come, 2030 just by the corner. And without the good special resource management, of course, the SDG is very far from being achieved within the African continent. So if this forum can come up with key highlights and quick intervention with other partners, we could now see how we could stimulate a connection within the African region, either through a pilot project within the 4 African region, North, South, West, East, and Central Africa, if possible. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Soniditu, for your amazing recommendations. And I believe the organizers of the forum are also listening to your recommendations. And yeah, we will definitely work on that and come up with with a report on what we are discussing in this forum, and to see how we can move forward with the collaborations in the future. Thank you so much. So after this panel, we will have 1.5 hours And then we will have the third panel. So 1 hour and a half for lunch. And then we will come back for the third panel. So the third panel will be on space technologies for sustainable and circular economies. We will have, as panelists, we will have Mr. Khalifa Bakar from Senegal, CEO of AfGSEP, and we will have we will also have Mr. Lassine Sanankwa. He's the founder of Youth Mappers from Mali, and he has launched a program where for the youth community in Africa, so the youth community of geospatial experts in across Africa. He will be here as well. And we will have Mrs. Farida Mansouri. She's from the Ministry of Agriculture, Water Resources and Fisheries from Tunisia. So she will be here for the third panel. So the third panel will be from 2 p.m. GMT to 3 p.m. GMT. After that, we will have the fourth panel. So panel 4 on space technologies for digital transformation and technological innovation from 3:30 p.m. GMT to 4:30 p.m. GMT. And for the panel 4, we have as panelists, we have Mrs. Hilda Manzi. She's a PhD candidate and she's representing the Geospatial Research International from Kenya. We also have, we will also have Mr. Ferdinand Iseri. He's currently Assistant Director for Geospatial Data Processing for the National Mapping Institute from Cameroon. And Mr. Asma Goul from the Ministry of Equipment, Housing, and Territorial Development from Tunisia. So that is for the panel 4. So thank you for the panelists and for the audience for joining us, and see you in 1 hour and a half. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.